Welcome aboard. I'm Captain Wayne Canning, and this is a Boating Zen podcast. Amateur radio for the cruising boat. There are many communication options available for the cruising boat, and each has its advantages and disadvantages. When I started cruising many years ago, the only communication options were basically VHF radio and single sideband radio. Today, that list is a bit longer, with cell phones, Wi-Fi, satellite communication now standard on many boats. Each of these has its own benefits and its place aboard a cruising boat, but I have found the old ways are often, if not the best, sometimes the most fun. Many cruising boats have marine single sideband radios, which are very similar to amateur or ham radio. Although equipped with these radios, many are not getting as much out of them as they could or should. Using single sideband and amateur radio aboard your boat can add a new dimension to communications, opening up new sources of information and sometimes making new friends along the way. So what is amateur or ham radio? It is a type of AM radio and is very similar to marine single sideband. Amateur radio operates on similar frequencies to marine single sideband, however it allows more frequencies to be used, making it a lot more versatile. Operating on the AM bands means that with just a relatively small amount of output power, you are able to communicate long distances, sometimes thousands of miles, making this a good option for cruising boats in far-off locations. In fact, amateur radio is so similar to marine single sideband that almost all marine units can be opened up to amateur bands with just a simple software update. Many cruisers, both sail and power, have found amateur radio can not only add a new level of safety to their cruising, but can also add new dimension of fun. One of the big differences in radio communication over cell and satellite phones is that radio is open for others to hear and join in on the conversations. Now, at first, this lack of privacy may seem a bit uncomfortable, but in truth, it opens a new community to the cruiser in their travels. There are many nets or open conversations available to any cruiser who wishes to join in. Information about weather, cruising conditions, and even boat repair is talked about on these radio nets. Many nets have a daily check-in for voyaging boats on passage, adding to the safety factor for these sailors. Most of these nets operate at specified times of the day and are controlled, meaning a volunteer will control who can talk and when. If you already have a marine single sideband, you may be very close to being able to use amateur frequencies as well. As mentioned, most marine units are able to be modified to work as an amateur radio. This modification, usually a simple software mod that can be made by any good marine radio technician. The antenna and tuner remain the same, so this can be a very cost-effective way to get into amateur radio. If you are starting from scratch, it is recommended to install an already opened marine radio, as these are simpler to operate and can also be used on the marine bands and frequencies. FCC laws allow users to operate a marine radio on the amateur bands, but not the other way around, as marine units are required to have tighter tolerances for maintaining frequency during operation. Many are put off by the complexity and expense and difficulty of getting set up with amateur radio. The equipment can be pricey and the installation a bit finicky, but not that difficult. Add to that the need for a license, and many pass up becoming amateur radio operators. It is true getting set up for amateur radio communications can be a bit daunting, however it is usually worth the effort. It also needs to be kept in mind, once set up, most amateur radio services are free, unlike satellite and cell phones, which require a monthly fee to use. To reduce costs, there is also an option of purchasing used equipment. For others, the thought of having to study Morse code along with electrical and radio theory to get the license is too much. The truth is, the license is not that hard to get, and Morse code is no longer required. There are 3 basic levels of amateur radio licenses available in the U.S. Each level gives the operator more frequencies and privileges when operating an amateur station. The first level is a technician. This is an entry-level license with fairly restricted use. The next level is a general class license. This is what most cruisers get. This license opens more frequency for the operator and is not too difficult to get. Finally, there is the extra class license that requires an even greater level of understanding of radio theory. This license has 50 questions, and you must have passed the previous 2 tests before you would be allowed to test for this. The extra class license does open all amateur frequencies to the operator, giving you more options. There is a misconception that the tests needed to get an amateur radio operator's license are difficult and will take a lot of study. The truth is, some study is required, but it is not that difficult and worth the effort. Both the technical and general class licenses only have 35 multiple choice questions to pass, and neither require Morse code anymore. You must pass the technician class before you can test for the general class. This means you only have 2 tests with a total of 70 questions to be up and running with an amateur station. That is not so bad, really, and what you learn can also be helpful to understanding the rest of your boat's electrical systems, so not a bad investment of time. Taking the tests is usually very simple. The tests are given by a local ARRL, American Radio League, groups and are normally given every other week or at least once a month, depending on your location. The fee is low, and you can take both the technician and general class tests in the same sitting for the same fee. You must pass the technician test prior to taking the general class, but they can score your test right there and let you know if you can take the next test right away. This can save a few bucks too, as you will only pay for a single testing fee. After passing the test, it only takes a week or so to get your call sign, allowing you to operate on the air. There are many online resources to aid in studying for tests. Many have sample tests you can take to help get you ready as well. The ARRL website has a lot of information on just how to go about the whole process. For most, a couple of weeks of study in your spare time is all it takes to get through the tests. For many cruising couples, this can be a fun way to prepare for your upcoming voyages. Setting up a station aboard your boat can be simple as modifying an existing single sideband unit, or a bit more challenging for those starting from scratch. For those with existing single sideband unit, check to see if it is possible to transmit on an amateur band. To do this, you simply tune to a non-marine frequency with no traffic on it and key the mic. If the radio goes into transmit mode, you are good to go. If it does not, you may need to make a modification to the radio. How difficult this will be depends on the brand and age of the unit. It would be best to consult a local marine radio technician for help with this, but some information can be found online as well. For those starting from scratch, I recommend purchasing a marine unit that is already open to the amateur bands. Installing a single sideband radio is not quite as easy as installing a VHF radio, but it is not that difficult as some would have you believe. There are basically 2 parts of a good installation: the radio itself and the antenna system. Notice I refer to the antenna as a system rather than a single element. This is because the antenna is perhaps the most important part of the installation and is a bit more than just a pole stuck up on the top of your boat. Single sideband antennas consist of basically 3 parts. The first is the antenna itself, the next is the antenna tuner, and lastly, the antenna ground plane. It is beyond the scope of this article to get into all the nuances of antennas and radio installations, so I would suggest you find a good technician to help with the installation. Check with your local amateur radio club and other boaters in your area that use single sideband radio for advice. I do recommend keeping things as simple as possible and build on a basic installation as your expertise with this type of radio grows. Do not cut corners on wire or wire connection quality, as these are critical. When helping troubleshoot problems on other systems, I have found it is often the very simple basic things such as using poor quality antenna cable that can make a system work or not. Once you have your radio set up and have passed your tests for your license, it is time to explore this new world of amateur radio. For many, this means sitting in the marina trying to make contact with somebody. This is also the point where many get frustrated and begin to lose interest from the start. The problem is most marinas are very noisy as far as radio signals go. Other boats' refrigerators, battery chargers, and other equipment leak radio noise. Add to that transformers and other equipment in the marina itself, and nothing but the strongest signals get through to your radio. Another mistake many make is not knowing where and when to try to talk to other stations. It is at this point many think their installation is poor, when in fact it may not be. Before getting frustrated, it helps to search online for the times and frequencies of marine nets in your area. Try just listening for a bit. Pick a few nets to follow and tune in when they are on. If all you can hear is static or strange beeping noises, try turning off equipment on your boat to see if this quiets things down. Inverters, battery chargers, and refrigeration units are among the noisiest things aboard. If this does not help, try taking the boat out of the marina and try again. It can be amazing the difference just anchoring out away from all the electrical noise can make. Connecting with other amateur radio operators in an online group who you can set up a time to talk to is a good way to test your setup as well. If all else fails, try contacting your local amateur radio club for help. These people love to assist newbies in getting going and will be more than willing to check your setup. Setting up for amateur radio may seem a bit formidable, but it is not that hard as some think. The rewards come when you get to share information and make new friends while cruising the marine nets. As you begin to listen to and participate in cruising nets, the names of the boats and their crews will start to become familiar. You may even find yourself anchored in the same cove as someone you have been talking to. Often, the net controllers are land-based, giving them access to weather and other information that might be hard to get while afloat. These net controllers also can be helpful in keeping contact with loved ones at home. More than once I have heard emergency information relayed when someone at home became ill. You can also get real-time information about port conditions and other safety matters. The use of amateur radio aboard your boat can add a new dimension to the cruising experience, adding safety along with a bit of fun in the process. Learning to install and operate the equipment will add to your overall boating electrical knowledge. The experience and learning curve is not as bad as some would say, and the rewards are many. Written, recorded, and produced by Captain Wayne Canning for BoatingZen.com. All rights reserved. All music from royalty-free sources. This is a user-supported podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider subscribing at patreon.com/BoatingZen. Thank you for your support. Please visit my website, BoatingZen.com. Until next time, fair winds and following seas.